Here we're opening up the pipe for the bearing supports for the rotating rear wheel. The goal is to make the inner diameter of that pipe equal to the outer diameter of the bearing. So you'll see that was a frustrating moment. We took out too much material and the bearing just slipped right through. So we did another one. And there's our supports. That's where they're going to be sitting. Wondered how wide to make the support, so we estimated, about that wide. So now we're cutting off the bearing supports with the cutoff wheel. This turned out to not work as well as we had hoped, but I'll show you the process anyways. I'm plunging the cutoff blade into the pipe so that we can cut off the bearing supports. That's what we were thinking. That was a good idea. However, we're nervous that the bearings were not going to be aligned. You can see how they kind of are skewed. So we came up with a better idea. Just weld a pipe to the end so that the bearings would be aligned, and then we'll cut out the center sections later. So you'll see it keeps the bearings aligned. As you'll see, we've gotten it right there. We had to remove the paint off the metal so we could weld to it, and ruined the grinding wheel. Don't put paint into the grinding wheel. It ruins it. So here we tried to cut the pipes, or cut the support so that they would match the contour of the pipe. Did not work very well. Left a big gap there. You'll see. We found that by cutting off the ends just squared, as we're doing here, that worked the best. You'll hear a dead spot in the blade as it cuts. That's when a student rammed the blade into a piece of metal and ruined about 10 teeth in a row. So that's what happens when we cut too fast. So here now we're putting the bearings into the pipe. This is the hydraulic press. It's got a 50-ton capabilities, so we get the outer diameter of the bearing matches the inner diameter of the pipe, or get it close, and then when we press down, the bearings are press fit into the pipe and they're not going anywhere. So here I'm releasing the pressure in the pump, pulls up the bearing, then you'll see it's mounted inside. Spins freely. Now we're just going to weld these to the supports. Notice we've got the paint removed from the areas that are going to be welded. And there's the completed product. However, we found the sprocket needs to be on there, and look, it collides with where that support's going to be. So you notice on the right hand side we had to cut that part out and weld a new one to the left. After all of our work, we still messed up our measurements. Earlier we did an estimate and it ended up biting us. The wheel would not fit. Here we're trying to figure out how to mount the wheel to the axle. So we made a collar, put a hole through everything, and used a nail as a cotter pin. Got it all to work, and here is the final product. This is the rotating wheel support. So that would be the seated position as the rider is going to get into it, snaps back into the riding position, suspended underneath. So here he is, he's trying to get into it, he's trying to demonstrate the person getting into it. They'd be seated right there, step into the cranks, push back, and then it rotates up and they get into the Superman flying position.